The twin suns of Helios 9 cast long shadows across the barren landscape as Commander Jack Harper completed his final perimeter check of Outpost Epsilon. The small research station, little more than a collection of prefab modules and a communications array, sat isolated on the rocky planet's surface like a defenseless creature in a vast desert. Harper sighed, adjusting his environment suit's settings to combat the rapidly dropping temperature. 6 months into this assignment, and he was already counting the days until his replacement arrived. The isolation was getting to him, even with the company of the station's small crew. As he trudged back towards the main airlock, a flash of light in the twilight sky caught his attention. At first, he dismissed it as nothing more than a meteor, but as the object grew larger and brighter, Harper's military training kicked in. "Station, this is Harper," he'd barked into his comm. "We've got an unidentified object on approach vector, initiating lockdown protocols." The object, now clearly some kind of spacecraft, streaked across the sky trailing fire and debris. It disappeared behind a nearby ridge, the impact sending tremors through the ground that Harper felt even through his suit's insulation. Inside the station, klaxons blared as the crew scrambled to their emergency stations. Dr. Elena Rossi, the teen's phenobiologist, met Harper at the airlock, her dark eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. "What is it, Jack? Another supply drop?" Harper shook his head, his expression grim. "No scheduled deliveries for another month. This is something else entirely." As the station's small security team geared up, Harper briefed them on the situation. "Unknown craft. Possible crash landing approximately 2 clicks north of our position. We're going to investigate, but stay alert. This could be first contact, or something far less friendly." The team moved out, their rover kicking up plumes of reddish dust as it sped towards the impact site. As they crested the final ridge, Harper's breath caught in his throat. The vessel before them was like nothing he'd ever seen, sleek, almost organic in its design, with a silvery hull that seemed to shimmer and shift in the fading light. "My God," Elena whispered beside him. "It's beautiful." As they approached, a section of the hull suddenly rippled and parted, revealing a figure stumbling out onto the alien soil. Harper's hand instinctively went to his sidearm, but he froze as the being came into full view. She, for the creature was undeniably feminine, stood nearly 7 feet tall, with skin the color of polished sapphires and hair that seemed to flow and change color like an aurora. But it was her eyes that captivated Harper, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle on her face, each a swirling galaxy of gold and violet. The alien took a faltering step forward, then another. Harper noticed she was cradling something in her arms, a child, he realized with a start, its skin a paler shade of blue. "Please," the alien spoke, her voice melodious yet filled with desperation. "Help us." With those words, she collapsed to the ground. Harper was moving before he even realized it, racing to the fallen alien's side. Elena was right behind him, her scientific curiosity overridden by basic human compassion. "She's breathing," Elena announced, her hand hovering over the alien's chest. "But I have no idea what's normal for her species. We need to get them both back to the station." Harper nodded, already calling for an emergency med-evac. As they waited for the transport, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. This wasn't just first contact. This was something far more complicated and potentially dangerous. The child stirred in the alien woman's arms, its eyes, 2 of them, Harper noted, fluttering open. For a moment, alien and human locked gazes, and Harper felt a jolt of something. Recognition? Impossible. Yet he couldn't shake the sense of connection. As the med team arrived and began carefully loading the unconscious alien and her child onto stretchers, Harper's mind raced. Who were these beings? What had brought them here, so far from any known civilization? And why did he have the sinking feeling that trouble wasn't far behind? Back at the station, the atmosphere was electric. News of the alien visitors had spread quickly, and Harper had to forcibly remind several of the scientists that they were not to interfere with Elena's work in the medical bay. Commander, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Zara Chen, approached with a tablet in hand. "We've completed initial scans of the crash site. That ship, it's like nothing we've ever encountered. The technology is centuries beyond anything in the Alliance database." Harper frowned, studying the readouts. "Any signs of weapon systems?" Chen shook her head. "Nothing obvious, but there's so much we don't understand about its systems. It could be armed to the teeth, and we might not even recognize it." Before Harper could respond, Elena's voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander, she's awake, and you're going to want to hear this." Heart pounding, Harper made his way to the med bay. The alien woman was sitting up on the examination table, her child clutched protectively to her chest. Up close, her otherworldly beauty was even more striking, but it was the intelligence and fear in her eyes that truly captured Harper's attention. "I am Zara," she spoke, her voice somehow both musical and filled with tension. "Last princess of the Astrani Empire, and I've come to beg for your help." Harper blinked, taken aback by the directness of her statement. "I'm Commander Jack Harper of the Earth Alliance. You're safe here, Your Highness. But I think you'd better start from the beginning." Zara nodded, her grit on her child tightening. "My empire spans 1,000 worlds, Commander. Or rather, it did. We thought ourselves invincible, masters of technology beyond your imagining. But we grew complacent, and that was our downfall." She paused, her eyes distant with pain. "They came from the spaces between stars, creatures of shadow and hunger. We called them the Void. Our mighty fleets were shattered, our worlds consumed. I am all that remains of the royal line." Harper felt a chill run down his spine. "And the child?" "My daughter, Lyra." Zara's voice softened. "The last hope for my people. I've spent years running, searching for a safe haven. But the Void always finds us. Until I heard whispers of a species the Void feared, humans." She locked eyes with Harper, and he felt the weight of her gaze like a physical thing. "Your kind is young, primitive by our standards, and yet you've done what my people could not. You fought the Void and won." Harper's mind reeled. The Battle of Proxima Centauri, Earth's first and so far only encounter with an alien force, had been dismissed by many as little more than a skirmish. But if what Zara was saying was true— "Why come to us?" he asked, trying to process the implications. "Surely there are other, more advanced civilizations that could help you." Zara's expression hardened. "Because you are the only ones who have proven yourselves worthy. The only ones who might stand a chance against what's coming. I've seen the fire in your kind, the determination. You face impossible odds and refuse to yield." She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "So I've come to make you an offer, Commander Harper. An exchange. I will share with you the knowledge of my people, technology, history, everything we know of the Void. In return—" Zara's voice faltered for a moment, and Harper saw the desperation behind her regal facade. "In return, I ask for your protection, for myself and for my daughter. I offer myself as your concubine, if that is what it takes. Anything to ensure Lyra's safety." The med bay fell silent, the only sound the soft beeping of monitoring equipment. Harper stared at Zara, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions. The rational part of him knew he should contact Earth Command immediately, let the diplomats and politicians handle this. But something deeper, more instinctive, told him that there wasn't time for bureaucracy. "Your Highness," he said slowly, choosing his words carefully. "I don't know much about your culture, but in ours, we don't take concubines. What we do offer is asylum to those in need. If even half of what you're saying is true, then you and your daughter are under the protection of the Earth Alliance." Relief flooded Zara's features, and for a moment, Harper thought she might weep. Instead, she straightened, every inch the royal despite her bedraggled appearance. "Thank you, Commander," she said softly. "But you must understand, the void will not stop. They will come for us and for you. We must prepare." As if on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with tension. "Commander, we've got multiple contacts on long-range sensors. They're not responding to hails, and they're on an intercept course." Harper locked eyes with Zara, seeing his own grim determination reflected in her alien gaze. "Well, Your Highness," he said, already moving towards the door. "Looks like we're about to get a crash course in fighting the void. I hope you're ready to share some of that advanced knowledge." Zara nodded, rising gracefully from the examination table. "Commander Harper," she said, a hint of her former imperial authority creeping into her voice, "I believe this is the beginning of a most interesting alliance." As they raced to the command center, Harper couldn't shake the feeling that the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy had just shifted on its axis. Whatever came next, one thing was certain: humanity was about to be thrust onto a much larger stage, ready or not. And with that cliffhanger, we conclude part 1 of our story. The stage is set for an epic confrontation, with the survival of multiple species hanging in the balance. In part 2, we'll dive deeper into the preparations for the coming battle, explore the growing bond between our human and alien protagonists, and unveil more secrets of the mysterious void. The adventure is just beginning. A desperate plea. The command center of Outpost Epsilon hummed with frantic activity as Harper and Zara burst through the doors. Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew over holographic displays, her face etched with concentration. "Status report," Harper barked, sliding into the command chair. Chen's voice was taut. 6 unknown vessels, configuration unlike anything in our database. They've dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system and are proceeding on an intercept course, ET day 20 minutes. Harper turned to Zara, who was studying the sensor readouts with a grim expression. "Those are Void Scout ships," she confirmed, her melodic voice tinged with fear. "A full invasion fleet won't be far behind." "Recommendations?" Harper asked, pushing aside the surreal nature of the situation. Here he was, asking tactical advice from an alien princess about fighting an enemy he'd only learned existed minutes ago. Zara's 3 eyes narrowed in concentration. "Your weapons are primitive, but they may be effective if we can augment them with Austreni technology. The Void's ships have a weakness. Their phase-shifted hulls are vulnerable to tachyon radiation." "Tachyon radiation?" Elena, who had followed them from the med bay, interjected. "But that's theoretical. We don't have the means to." "You don't," Zara interrupted, "but I do." She turned to Harper. "Commander, if you'll allow me access to your systems, I believe I can modify your defensive grid to emit a tachyon pulse. It won't destroy their ships, but it should disrupt their sensors and weapons long enough for us to escape." Harper hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Do it. Chen, prep the evacuation shuttles. We're getting everyone off this rock." He tapped his comm. "All personnel, this is not a drill. Proceed to emergency evac stations immediately." As Zara interfaced with the station's computers, her fingers dancing over the alien interface with preternatural speed, Harper felt a tug on his sleeve. He looked down to see Lyra, Zara's daughter, staring up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Are you going to save us?" the child asked, her voice a musical whisper. Harper knelt down, meeting her gaze. "We're all going to save each other," he said with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. "That's what allies do." A series of sharp beeps drew their attention back to the main display. Chen's face had gone pale. "Commander, we've got a problem. The evacuation shuttles. They won't be enough. We're 3 seats short." A heavy silence fell over the command center. Harper's mind raced, calculating options, each one more desperate than the last. "I'll stay behind," he said finally. "Buy you all some time, To." "No." Zora's voice cut through his words like a blade. "You don't understand what the void does to those it captures. I won't allow it." Her eyes met Harper's, filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "There's another way, my ship." Elena shook her head. "But it's damaged, the crash." "The primary systems are still functional," Zara insisted. "With your help, I can have it space-worthy in time. It's faster than your shuttles, more maneuverable. We can draw their fire, give the others a chance to escape." Harper studied her for a long moment. "You're talking about using yourself as bait," he said quietly. Zara lifted her chin. "I'm talking about protecting my daughter and repaying the debt I owe you for taking us in. Will you help me, Commander Harper?" The weight of command had never felt heavier on Harper's shoulders. He looked around the room, at Chen's determined face, at Elena's worried eyes, at little Lyra clutching her mother's hand. Finally, he nodded. "All right, Chen, you're in charge of the evac. Get everyone to the shuttles and rendezvous at the coordinates we discussed. Elena, you're with me and the princess. Let's see if we can get that alien ship flying." As they raced towards the crash site, the first impacts from void weapons fire rocked the planet's surface. Harper tried not to think about the impossibility of what they were attempting, to repair an alien vessel and outfly an enemy they barely understood, all in a matter of minutes. Zara led them into her ship, and Harper's breath caught at the sight of the interior. It was like stepping into a living organism, with walls that pulsed with bioluminescence and controls that seemed to meld with Zara's very thoughts. "Quickly," she urged, guiding them to what appeared to be an engine room. "The phase drive is damaged, but if we can reroute power from the auxiliary systems." They worked in a frenzy, Harper and Elena following Zara's rapid-fire instructions. More than once, Harper found himself marveling at the level of technology surrounding them. If they survived this, the scientific advancements from studying this ship alone could propel humanity forward by centuries. A violent tremor shook the ship, nearly knocking them off their feet. Harper's comm crackled to life with Chen's voice. "Commander, Void forces have breached the upper atmosphere. The shuttles are launching now, but we're taking heavy fire." "Acknowledged," Harper replied, his hands deep in a tangle of what he hoped were power conduits. "Just hold on a little longer, Lieutenant." Zara made a triumphant sound as the ship hummed to life around them. "We have propulsion and basic shielding," she announced. "It will have to be enough." They scrambled to the bridge, Zara practically melding with the pilot's chair as her hands danced over the controls. Through the view screen, Harper watched in horror as dark, otherworldly shapes descended from the sky, raining destruction upon the outpost. "Strap in," Zara commanded. "This will not be a smooth flight." The ship lifted off with a lurch, its damaged systems protesting the sudden acceleration. As they broke atmosphere, Harper got his first clear look at the void vessels. They were monstrous things, defying easy description, part machine, part organic, radiating an aura of wrongness that made his skin crawl. "There," Elena called out, pointing to a cluster of smaller dots fleeing the planet. "The evacuation shuttles." Zara's face was a mask of concentration as she guided their ship on an intercept course. "Diverting all power to engines and shields," she muttered. "We need to draw their attention." What followed was the most harrowing space battle of Harper's career. Zara's piloting skills were beyond anything he'd ever witnessed, the ship moving in ways that should have been impossible. They danced between void energy beams, retaliating with precisely targeted tachyon bursts that left the enemy vessels reeling. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. A glancing blow sent them spiraling, alarms blaring throughout the ship. "Hull breach in Section 3. Elena shouted over the cacophony. "We can't take another hit like that." Harper gripped his seat, watching as the evacuation shuttles grew smaller on the view screen. They were almost clear, almost safe, just a little longer. Suddenly, Zara gasped. One of the void ships had broken off from the main group, accelerating towards the fleeing shuttles. "No," she whispered. Then louder, "No, I won't let you take anyone else." Before Harper could react, Zara sent their ship into a steep dive, directly into the path of the pursuing void vessel. "What are you doing?" Harper yelled, but he already knew the answer. Zara turned to him, her alien features set in grim determination. "Saving your people," she said simply. Then, to Elena, "Get to an escape pod. Take Lyra. Keep her safe." But Elena began to protest. "Go?" Zora's voice cracked like a whip. "There's no time." As Elena raced from the bridge, scooping up a terrified Lyra, Harper met Zora's gaze. In that moment, 1,000 unspoken words passed between them. "It's been an honor, Your Highness," he said softly. Zora's lips curved in a sad smile. "The honor has been mine, Commander Harper. Now, let us show the Void the true meaning of sacrifice." The ship accelerated to impossible speeds, aimed directly at the heart of the enemy vessel. Harper closed his eyes, bracing for impact. In his final moments, he thought of Earth, of the people he was saving, of the alliance forged in these desperate hours that might yet turn the tide against the darkness. The collision, when it came, was like a newborn star. In the aftermath, as the remaining Void ships retreated in confusion, a single escape pod drifted amidst the debris. Inside, Elena held a sobbing Lyra close, whispering soothing words she didn't quite believe. "It's all right," she murmured, watching the stars through the pod's small viewport. "We're safe now, and someday, somehow, we'll make their sacrifice mean something. I promise." As the pod's distress beacon pulsed steadily into the Void, carrying with it the hopes and fears of two civilizations, the true battle for the fate of the galaxy was only just beginning. This concludes part 2 of our story. The stakes have been raised dramatically, with sacrifices made and alliances forged in the crucible of battle. In part 3, we'll explore the aftermath of this confrontation, delve deeper into the nature of the Void threat, and see how humanity begins to grapple with its new role in a much larger and more dangerous universe. Hunted across the stars, the escape pod drifted through the inky blackness of space, its lone occupants surrounded by the eerie silence of the Void. Elena Rossi, her lab coat still smeared with alien blood, cradled the young Astreni Princess Lyra in her arms. The child's sobs had subsided into a fitful sleep, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts and the weight of responsibility that now rested on her shoulders. A soft beat from the pod's control panel drew her attention. The navigation system had locked onto a signal, one of the evacuation shuttles from Outpost Epsilon. Elena's heart leaped. They weren't alone after all. As the pod maneuvered towards a larger vessel, Elena gently shook Lyra awake. "We're safe now, little one," she whispered, hoping her words were true. The shuttle's airlock cycled open, revealing the haggard but relieved face of Lieutenant Sarah Chen. "Dr. Rossi, thank the stars you made it." Her eyes fell on Lyra, widening in recognition. "Is that?" Elena nodded grimly. "The last princess of the Astreni, and quite possibly the key to saving us all." Once aboard the shuttle, Elena was quickly briefed on their situation. Of the 6 evacuation shuttles that had launched from Helios 9, only 3 had survived the Void attack. They were now on a desperate flight towards the nearest Earth Alliance outpost, hoping to warn humanity of the impending threat. "What about Commander Harper?" Elena asked, already dreading the answer. Ken's face fell. "We lost contact after that last explosion. He saved us all." A somber silence fell over the crew compartment, broken only by Lyra's soft, alien humming. The child seemed to be studying the humans intently, her otherworldly eyes taking in every detail. "She looks so much like her mother," Elena mused, a lump forming in her throat as she remembered Zara's sacrifice. Chen nodded, then leaned in close, lowering her voice. "Dr. Rossi, what exactly happened on that alien ship? What did the princess tell you?" Elena took a deep breath, organizing her thoughts. "It's worse than we could have imagined, Sarah. The Void, they're not just conquerors. They're consumers. They don't just destroy civilizations, they absorb them. And now they set their sights on humanity." Before she could elaborate further, alarms blared throughout the shuttle. Chen raced to the cockpit, Elena hot on her heels with Lyra in her arms. Multiple contacts, the pilot shouted, void signatures closing fast. Elena's blood ran cold. How? How could they have found us so quickly? Lyra tugged at Elena's sleeve, her voice a musical whisper. The stars sing to them, she said cryptically. They follow the echoes of fear. Chen shot the child a bewildered look before turning back to the controls. Whatever the reason, we can't outrun them in these shuttles. We need a plan fast. Elena's mind raced. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, with nowhere to hide. Then an idea struck her. Crazy, desperate, but just maybe crazy enough to work. The Kuiper Belt, she said suddenly. We're not far from the edge of the solar system. If we can make it to the asteroid field. Chen caught on immediately. We might be able to lose them in the debris, but these shuttles weren't designed for that kind of maneuvering. We don't have a choice, Elena insisted. She turned to Lyra, kneeling to meet the child's gaze. Lyra, sweetheart, I need your help. Your mother, she interfaced with our technology. Can you do the same? Lyra hesitated, then nodded sullenly. I can try. What followed was a frantic race against time. As Chen piloted the shuttle towards the distant band of asteroids and ice chunks that marked the edge of the solar system, Elena and Lyra worked to integrate the child's innate Astreni abilities with the shuttle's systems. The pursuing void ships grew closer with each passing moment, their otherworldly weapons lighting up the darkness of space. The other two shuttles flanked them in a defensive formation, but Elena knew they wouldn't last long against such overwhelming force. Just as the first asteroids came into view, Lyra let out a triumphant cry. The shuttle's systems surged with new power, holographic displays springing to life around them. I did it, the young princess exclaimed. I can feel the ship, like it's a part of me. Chen wasted no time. Then let's see what this hybrid can do. Hold on tight, everyone. The shuttle dived into the Kuiper Belt, suddenly moving with an agility that defied its original design. Lyra's eyes glowed with an inner light as she guided them through the treacherous field of debris, always one step ahead of their pursuers. Massive chunks of ice and rock filled the view screen, battering the void ships that dared to follow. One by one, the alien vessels fell back or met their demise against the unforgiving obstacles. But their victory was short-lived. As they emerged on the other side of the asteroid field, a massive shape loomed before them, a void mothership, dwarfing anything they had encountered before. Oh no, Chen breathed. We can't fight that. Elena felt a small hand slip into hers. She looked down to see Lyra, her young face set with determination. We don't have to fight, the child said. We just have to be clever. Before anyone could question her, Lyra's eyes flashed with that strange inner light. The shuttle's systems responded instantly, reconfiguring in ways Elena couldn't begin to understand. What are you doing? She asked, both awed and terrified. Lyra's voice was distant, as if she were listening to something only she could hear. The void fears the spaces between. We'll use that against them. Suddenly, the space around their shuttle seemed to ripple and distort. Elena felt a momentary sensation of vertigo, and then they were elsewhere. The mothership, the Kuiper Belt, even the familiar constellations had vanished, replaced by an alien starscape. By all that's holy, Chen whispered. Did we just jump? Elena stared at Lyra in amazement. You opened a wormhole. But how? The young princess swayed, clearly exhausted by the effort. The Astreni learned to fold space long ago, but it's dangerous. We can't stay here long. As if to emphasize her point, strange energies began to crackle around the shuttle. Through the view screen, Elena could see things moving in the distance, shapes that hurt her eyes to look at directly. Where are we? She asked, not entirely sure she wanted to know the answer. The spaces between, Lyra replied softly. The places the void fears to tread, but we can't linger. I can feel them searching for us. With another flash of light and that unsettling sense of displacement, they emerged back into normal space. Elena's jaw dropped as she recognized the blue-green marble floating before them. "Earth," Chen breathed. "You brought us all the way to Earth." As they began their descent towards the planet, awestruck by their narrow escape, Elena knew that this was only the beginning. They carried with them knowledge that would change humanity's understanding of the universe forever. But they also carried a warning of a threat beyond imagination. The real challenge, she realized, was only just beginning. How do you prepare an entire species for a war against an enemy that defies comprehension? As Lyra curled up in her arms, already drifting off to sleep, Elena made a silent vow. She would protect this child, this last princess of a fallen empire, and together they would find a way to stand against the coming darkness. As the shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere, leaving a fiery trail across the sky, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the fate of not just humanity, but of all sentient life in the galaxy, now rested on their shoulders. The pieces were in motion, the stage set for a conflict that would reshape the very fabric of existence. And somewhere out there in the vast expanse of space, the void was watching, waiting, hungering for its next meal. This concludes part 3 of our story. The survivors have made it to Earth, but they bring with them dire warnings and impossible challenges. In part 4, we'll explore humanity's reaction to this new threat, delve deeper into the mysteries of Astrani technology, and see the beginnings of a plan to stand against the void. The stakes continue to rise as the true scale of the conflict becomes clear. The hidden sanctuary. The debriefing room at Earth Alliance headquarters was filled with a tense silence. Elena Rossi stood before a panel of grim-faced military and political leaders, her voice steady as she recounted the events on Helios 9 and their harrowing journey to Earth. Beside her, Lyra sat quietly, her alien features drawing curious and sometimes wary glances from the assembled officials. Admiral Zao, a stern-faced woman with steel-grey hair, leaned forward. "Dr. Rossi, you understand the gravity of what you're proposing. An alien threat capable of consuming entire civilizations, now targeting Earth." Elena nodded sullenly. "I know it sounds incredible, Admiral, but I've seen the evidence with my own eyes. The void is real, and it's coming for us." A murmur rippled through the room. General Harrison, a bulldog of a man with a chest full of medals, spoke up. "Even if we believe this fantastic tale, what do you expect us to do? Our technology is no match for what you've described." It was Lyra who answered, her musical voice silencing the room. "Your technology alone may not be sufficient," she said, her eyes gleaming with wisdom beyond her years. "But combined with Astrani knowledge, we may stand a chance." The young princess rose, approaching a holographic display at the center of the room. With a wave of her hand, the image shifted, showing schematics for advanced weaponry and defenses. "My mother entrusted me with the collective knowledge of our civilization," Lyra explained. "I can help you prepare. We must act quickly. The void grows stronger with each world it consumes." Admiral Zao's eyes narrowed, "And we're supposed to simply trust you. For all we know, this could be an elaborate ruse to infiltrate our defenses." Elena stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Lyra's shoulder. "With all due respect, Admiral, if the Astrani wanted to conquer us, they could have done so centuries ago. Right now, Lyra may be our only hope of survival." The room erupted into heated debate. Elena watched as factions formed, those willing to embrace the alien princess and her knowledge, and those who viewed her as a potential threat. Just as the argument reached a fever pitch, a new voice cut through the chaos. "That's enough." All eyes turned to the doorway, where a man in a wheelchair had entered unnoticed. Despite his physical condition, he radiated an aura of authority that immediately silenced the room. "Dr. Stephen Chen," Elena breathed, recognizing the legendary scientist and strategist. Dr. Chen wheeled himself to the center of the room, his sharp eyes taking in Lyra with obvious fascination. "I've reviewed the data from Helios 9 and the shuttle's journey," he said. "There's no doubt in my mind that the threat is real. The question now is not whether we should act, but how quickly we can mobilize." His words seemed to break the deadlock. Admiral Zhao nodded reluctantly. "Very well. Dr. Chen, I'm putting you in charge of a new task force. Work with Dr. Rossi and the Astreni princess. Develop whatever technologies and strategies you can to prepare us for this threat." As the meeting adjourned, Elena felt a mixture of relief and trepidation. They had won this battle, but the war ahead seemed impossibly daunting. Dr. Chen approached them, a wry smile on his weathered face. "Well, Dr. Rossi, Princess Lyra, it seems we have our work cut out for us. Shall we begin?" The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. A secret facility, dubbed Sanctuary, was established in a remote mountain range. Here, human scientists worked alongside Lyra, attempting to merge Astrani technology with Earth's existing infrastructure. Progress was rapid, but not without setbacks. Cultural misunderstandings and technological incompatibilities led to frequent frustrations. Elena often found herself playing mediator between the brilliant but impatient Dr. Chen and the equally brilliant but sometimes cryptic Lyra. One evening, as they took a rare break on a balcony overlooking the facility, Elena noticed Lyra staring at the stars with a wistful expression. "What are you thinking about?" she asked gently. Lyra's eyes, still full of sorrow despite the weeks that had passed, met Elena's. "I was thinking about my mother, about all those we've lost. Sometimes I wonder if we're just delaying the inevitable." Elena knelt beside her, taking the child's hands in her own. "Hey now, none of that talk. Your mother believed in us, in this alliance. We're going to prove her right." A small smile tugged at Lyra's lips. "You sound like Commander Harper." The mention of the fallen hero sent a pang through Elena's heart. "He would be proud of you, you know, of all we've accomplished." Their moment was interrupted by an urgent call over the facility's comm system. "Dr. Rossi, Princess Lyra, please report to the main lab immediately." They rushed to the lab, finding Dr. Chen hunched over a complex array of equipment, his eyes wide with excitement. "We've done it," he exclaimed as they entered. "The quantum entanglement drive is operational." Elena's breath caught. This was the breakthrough they'd been working towards, a propulsion system that could potentially outmaneuver the void's faster-than-light travel. Lyra approached the device, her hand hovering over its shimmering surface. "It's beautiful," she whispered, "a perfect blend of our technologies." But their celebration was short-lived. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility, red emergency lights bathing the lab in an ominous glow. "What's happening?" Elena shouted over the din. Dr. Chen's fingers flew over a nearby console. His face paled. Void signatures detected at the edge of the solar system, a lot of them. Elena's blood ran cold. How? How did they find us so quickly? Lyra's eyes were distant, as if listening to something only she could hear. "They've learned," she said softly. "Adapted. They're following the quantum wake of our jump to Earth." Dr. Chen wheeled himself to a communications panel. "This is Chen. Initiate Protocol Omega." "I repeat, initiate Protocol Omega." Elena knew what that meant, total evacuation of the facility. "But the drive," she protested. "We can't leave it for them to find." "We're not leaving it," Dr. Chen said grimly. "We're taking it with us. Lyra, can you interface with the systems like you did on the shuttle?" The young princess nodded, her face set with determination. "I can do better than that. I can merge the drive with the facility's shields. We can take the whole lab." As chaos erupted around them, personnel rushing to evacuation points, Elena watched in awe as Lyra melded with the facility's systems. The entire lab began to hum with energy, holographic displays springing to life around them. "Hold on to something," Lyra warned, her voice echoing strangely. The world seemed to shift and blur around them. Elena felt a moment of vertigo, and then they were elsewhere. The lab, now encased in a shimmering energy field, floated in orbit around a rust-red planet. "Mars," Dr. Chen breathed. "You brought the entire lab to Mars." Lyra swayed, clearly exhausted by the effort. Elena caught her before she could fall. "I've masked our quantum signature," the child murmured. "We should be safe here for now." As they gazed out at the alien landscape before them, Elena felt a mixture of hope and fear. They had escaped the immediate threat, but the true battle was only beginning. Somewhere out there, the void was coming, hungrier than ever. But as she looked at Lyra's determined face and Dr. Chen's calculating eyes, Elena allowed herself a moment of optimism. They had achieved the impossible once. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could do it again. The lab-turned spaceship drifted in Mars' orbit, a hidden sanctuary carrying the hopes of two civilizations. The next move in this cosmic chess game was theirs to make. This concludes Part 4 of our story. The alliance between humans and Astreni has borne fruit, but the void draws ever closer. In Part 5, we'll see our heroes put their new technologies to the test as they formulate a daring plan to strike back against the encroaching darkness. The fate of Earth and the galaxy hangs in the balance. Turning the tables. The Martian sunrise painted the sky in hues of pink and orange, a stark contrast to the red desert below. Inside the floating laboratory that had become their home and last line of defense, Elena Rossi stared out the viewport, lost in thought. It had been 3 months since their daring escape from Earth, 3 months of feverish work and preparation. "Penny for your thoughts, Doctor." Dr. Chen's voice broke through her reverie. The older scientist wheeled himself to her side, his eyes twinkling with the excitement of new discoveries despite the dire circumstances. Elena sighed, running a hand through her disheveled hair. "I was just thinking about Earth, about everyone we left behind. Are we doing enough? Will we be ready in time?" Before Chen could respond, a musical voice chimed in. "We have to be." Lyra approached, her alien features set in a determined expression that made her look far older than her years. In the months since their arrival on Mars, the young Astreni princess had grown both in stature and in the command of her abilities. She was no longer just a child carrying the weight of her civilization's knowledge, but a key member of their team. "I've been analyzing the quantum resonance patterns," Lara continued, bringing up a holographic display with a wave of her hand. "I believe I've found a way to track the void's movements across the galaxy." Dr. Chen leaned forward, his eyes widening as he studied the data. "Incredible. If this is accurate, we could predict where they'll strike next." Elena felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. "And if we can predict their movements, we can set a trap," Lyra finished, a fierce grin spreading across her face. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity as they refined Lyra's discovery and formulated a plan. The lab buzzed with energy as human scientists and engineers worked alongside the systems Lyra had integrated from her Astreni heritage. Admiral Zaya's holographic form flickered to life in the center of the command center, her expression grim but determined. "You're certain about this, Dr. Chen? The risk seems enormous." Chen nodded, his voice steady. "The risk of inaction is far greater, Admiral. This may be our only chance to strike before the void reaches Earth." As Chen outlined their plan to the Earth Alliance leadership, Elena found herself marveling at how far they'd come. The quantum entanglement drive they developed allowed for near-instantaneous travel across vast distances. Combined with Lyra's ability to mask their quantum signature, they had a weapon the void wouldn't see coming. "And that's where you come in, Admiral," Chen was saying. "We'll need a strike force ready to move at a moment's notice. The window of opportunity will be small." Zhao's hologram nodded grimly. "Understood. I'll have our best ships and pilots standing by. Godspeed, all of you. The fate of humanity rests in your hands." As the transmission ended, an uneasy silence fell over the lab. The enormity of what they were about to attempt weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Laura's small hand slipped into Elena's, squeezing gently. "We can do this," the young princess said, her voice filled with a confidence that belied her age. "We have to." Elena squeezed back, forcing a smile. "You're right. Now, let's run through the plan one more time." The next 48 hours were a blur of final preparations and tense waiting. Lyra remained connected to their sensor array, monitoring the quantum fluctuations that signaled the void's movements. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, alarms blared throughout the facility. "They're making a move," Lyra called out, her eyes glowing with an inner light as she interfaced with the systems. A large fleet heading towards the Proxima Centauri system. Chen's fingers flew over his console, alerting Earth Alliance now. Proxima Centauri, they must be after the colony there. Elena felt her heart racing as she strapped herself into the command chair. This was it. Everything they'd worked for came down to the next few moments. "Quantum drive spooling up," one of the engineers announced. "Ready on your mark." Elena took a deep breath, looking around at the determined faces of her crew. This is for Earth, for the Astrani, for every civilization the Void has destroyed. Let's make it count. She nodded to Lyra. "Take us in." The world seemed to shift and blur around them as the quantum drive engaged. For a fraction of a second, Elena felt as though she could see the very fabric of space-time bending around them. Then, with a flash of light, they emerged in the Proxima Centauri system. The scene that greeted them was one of nightmarish beauty. The Void fleet hung in space like a cancer against the stars, their otherworldly ships defying easy description. But this time, they weren't the hunters, they were the hunted. "Now," Elena shouted. Lyra's hands danced over the controls, and suddenly the space around the Void fleet erupted with quantum distortions. The alien ships writhed and twisted, caught in a web of energy they couldn't comprehend. "Earth Alliance fleet incoming," Chen announced, a note of triumph in his voice. Through the viewport, Elena watched as humanity's ships dropped out of FTL, weapons blazing. The Void, trapped and disoriented by the quantum net, found themselves on the defensive for the first time in eons. But the battle was far from over. As the initial shock wore off, the Void began to adapt, their ships morphing and changing to combat the quantum trap. "They're breaking free," one of the sensor operators called out, panic edging into his voice. Elena turned to Lyra, seeing the strain on the young princess's face as she fought to maintain the quantum net. "Can you hold them?" Lyra gritted her teeth, her entire body glowing with energy. "Not for much longer. We need to end this now." In that moment, Elena made a decision that would change the course of the war. "Dr. Chen, the quantum resonance cannon, is it operational?" Chen's eyes widened. "It's never been tested in combat. The power requirements alone could tear us apart." "We don't have a choice," Elena insisted. "Divert all power to the cannon." "Lyra, can you handle it?" The young Astrani nodded, her face set with grim determination. "I was born for this moment." As the battle raged around them, their lab-turned warship began to hum with terrifying energy. The quantum resonance cannon, a weapon that could potentially unravel the very fabric of spacetime, powered up for the first time. "Earth Alliance ships, clear the area," Elena shouted into the comm. "We're about to fire." The human fleet scattered, leaving a clear line of fire to the heart of the Void Armada. Lyra's eyes blazed with otherworldly light as she merged her consciousness with the weapon systems. "For my mother," Lyra whispered, "for Commander Harper, for everyone we've lost." With a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of reality, the quantum resonance cannon fired. A beam of pure, distilled spacetime lanced out, tearing through the Void fleet like tissue paper. Ships simply ceased to exist, erased from reality itself. The aftermath was eerie in its silence. Where once had hung a terrifying armada, now there was nothing but scattered debris and lingering quantum distortions. As the crew erupted in cheers and disbelieving laughter, Elena sagged in her chair, the adrenaline leaving her system. They had done it. They had struck a blow against an enemy that had seemed undefeatable. But as she looked at Lyra, exhausted but triumphant, and at the determined faces of her human colleagues, Elena knew this was only the beginning. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. The void would be back, angrier and more desperate than ever. But for the first time since this conflict began, Elena allowed herself to feel real hope. Humanity and Astreni, working together, had achieved the impossible, and they would do it again, as many times as it took. As their ship turned back towards Mars, carrying with it the hopes of two civilizations and the key to fighting an unimaginable enemy, Elena made a silent vow. They would not just survive this war, they would win it. The void had awakened a sleeping giant, and now it was humanity's turn to become the hunter. This concludes part 5 of our story. The Alliance has scored a major victory, but the true test lies ahead. In our final part, we'll see the aftermath of this battle and the preparations for the greater conflict to come. The fate of the galaxy hangs in the balance as humanity steps onto the cosmic stage like never before. A new dawn. The mood aboard the Quantum Lab ship was a mixture of elation and grim determination as they made their way back to Mars. Their victory at Proxima Centauri had been decisive, but Elena knew it was only the opening salvo in what promised to be a long and grueling war. As they approached the Red Planet, a transmission came through from Earth. Admiral Zaya's hologram appeared, her usually stoic face breaking into a rare smile. "Congratulations, all of you," she said. "You've given us something we desperately needed, hope. But I'm afraid there's no time to rest on our laurels. We're detecting increased void activity across multiple sectors. They're angry, and they're coming in force." Dr. Chen leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with the fire of scientific discovery. "Admiral, the data we collected during the battle, it's revolutionary. We've learned more about void physiology and technology in those few minutes than in all our previous encounters combined." Lyra stepped into view, her young face set with determination. "And I believe I can use this information to enhance our defenses further. We can replicate the quantum resonance effect on a larger scale." Admiral Zhao nodded. "Excellent. I'm authorizing the immediate expansion of your program. We're calling it Project Astral Shield. Humanity is going all in on this alliance." As the transmission ended, Elena felt a swell of pride in her team. They had come so far, achieved so much. But the hardest part was still to come. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. The secret base on Mars became a hive of innovation and collaboration. Scientists and engineers from Earth worked side by side with the Astrani systems Lyra had integrated, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. Elena watched with amazement as Lyra grew into her role, no longer just a child bearing the weight of her civilization's knowledge, but a true leader in her own right. The young princess's ability to bridge the gap between human and Astrani technology proved invaluable. One evening, as they took a rare moment of respite on the observation deck, Elena found Lyra staring out at the stars, a wistful expression on her face. "Credit for your thoughts?" Elena asked, using the phrase she picked up from her human colleagues. Lyra smiled softly. "I was thinking about my mother, about all those we've lost. I wonder if they'd be proud of what we've accomplished." Elena put an arm around the young Astrani's shoulders. "They would be beyond proud, Lyra. You've honored their memory in the best way possible, by fighting for a future they believed in." Their moment was interrupted by an urgent call from the command center. Dr. Chen's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with tension. "Elena, Lyra, you need to see this." They rushed to the center, finding Chen hunched over a console, his face pale. "We've decoded more of the Void's quantum communications," he said without preamble. "It's worse than we thought. They're not just coming for Earth, they're launching a full-scale invasion of the galaxy. Thousands of worlds are in imminent danger." The implications were staggering. Earth and its handful of colonies were just a small part of a much larger conflict. Lyra's eyes blazed with a mixture of fear and determination. "Then we need to warn them, help them. We can't let what happened to my people happen to anyone else." Elena nodded, her mind racing. "But how? Even with the quantum drive, we can't be everywhere at once." It was Dr. Chen who provided the spark of inspiration. Maybe we don't have to be, he mused, wheeling himself to a large star map. What if we could create a network of quantum beacons? Use the principles of the resonance cannon to transmit information and energy across vast distances instantly. Lyra's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. A galactic defense grid. We could share our technology, coordinate efforts across multiple civilizations. The next weeks were a blur of frantic activity as they refined the concept. The Quantum Beacon Network would be the most ambitious project in human history, requiring resources and coordination on an unprecedented scale. But as news of the Void's true intentions spread, allies began to emerge from across the stars. Species that had long hidden from the Void's attention now stepped forward, eager to join the fight. Finally, after months of preparation, the day of reckoning arrived. Void fleets converged on multiple systems simultaneously, confident in their overwhelming force. But this time, they found more than just terrified prey. The Quantum Beacon Network hummed to life, linking thousands of worlds in an instant. Defensive grids powered up, shielding planets in impenetrable quantum fields. And at strategic points throughout the galaxy, fleets of hybrid ships, human ingenuity melded with Astrani technology, stood ready. From their command center on Mars, Elena, Lyra, and Dr. Chen coordinated the galactic defense. It was a battle unlike any in the history of the cosmos, a united front of diverse species fighting for their very existence against a force of unimaginable horror. The conflict raged across star systems, entire worlds hanging in the balance. There were losses, heartbreaking and terrible, but for every world that fell, 2 more joined the alliance, inspired by the unity and courage they witnessed. And at the heart of it all was Lyra, the last princess of a fallen empire, now the linchpin of a galactic resistance. Her ability to interface with the quantum network made her the perfect conductor for this cosmic orchestra of defiance. As the tide of battle slowly began to turn, Elena found herself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. From a chance encounter on a remote outpost to the cusp of reshaping the very nature of galactic civilization, it was almost too much to comprehend. In the final decisive battle, it was Lyra who delivered the killing blow. Interfacing directly with the quantum network, she turned the Void's own nature against them. The entities that had consumed so many civilizations found themselves unmade, scattered across dimensions, their terrible hunger finally silenced. In the aftermath, as cheers and celebrations erupted across countless worlds, Elena held Lyra close. The young Astrani was exhausted, but her eyes shone with the light of victory and hope. "We did it," Lyra whispered. "We really did it." Elena smiled, tears in her eyes. "Yes, we did. And now the real work begins." For this victory was not an end, but a beginning. The quantum network that had been their salvation now offered possibilities beyond imagination. The barriers between civilizations had been broken down, opening the door to a new era of cooperation and discovery. As they stood on the observation deck, watching ships from 100 worlds converge around Mars, no longer a hidden base, but a beacon of hope for the galaxy, Elena felt a sense of awe at what they had accomplished. Humanity had taken its first real steps onto the cosmic stage, not as conquerors, but as unifiers. The legacy of the Astrani lived on, not in one child, but in the combined efforts of countless beings across the stars. And somewhere out there, Elena liked to think that Commander Harper, Princess Zara, and all those who had sacrificed to make this moment possible were watching with pride. The Void had sought to consume the galaxy. Instead, it had inadvertently given birth to something beautiful, a united cosmos, ready to face whatever challenges the universe might present. As the first rays of Martian sunrise painted the sky, Elena, Lyra, and Dr. Chen stood together, no longer just survivors or refugees, but architects of a new galactic order. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities and wonders yet to be discovered. The story of the last Astrani princess and the humans who had taken her in was already becoming legend. But for those who had lived it, it was just the beginning. A new chapter in the history of the cosmos was about to be written, and they would be holding the pen. As Lyra's hand slipped into hers, Elena smiled. Whatever came next, they would face it together, human, Astreni, and all the diverse species of their new galactic family. The stars, once a reminder of the void's terrifying vastness, now twinkled with the light of endless potential. The dawn of a new era had arrived, and it was more beautiful than any of them could have imagined. This concludes our 6-part story, Take Me as Your Concubine. Alien princess with daughter begs a human thank you for joining us on this cosmic journey of courage, sacrifice, and the indomitable spirit of unity in the face of overwhelming odds.